back. This is the June jump off back to Black Action Cinema. Black Behind the Action panel. I am your host, Demetrius Angelo, the founder and executive producer of the Urban Action Showcase. And I'm not going to take up folks' time. I'm going to get right to the point. I'm going to introduce you to my esteemed guests. First, I would like to introduce you to Miss Cheryl in Action Lewis, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Hanshi Naquan Murphy from X-Ring Masters, and Mr. Emmanuel Manny Brown, martial arts, stunt, choreographer, everything. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you for joining us today with what I believe a very, very relevant topic because everyone's diversity, everyone's ethnicity, everyone matters. And when it comes to this genre that we call the genre of heroes, the action genre, the blockbuster genre, these are the people who are really creating the action. These are the people who are really putting literally their lives on the line for the action. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're shooting a dramatic role, right, there's a big difference between the dialogue of action versus the dialogue of drama. For instance, in drama, if you mess up your lines in drama, everybody's okay, no problem. Do it again. You mess up your lines in action, thing might be shut down because your line means your life, because your lines are physical. So people need to really, really put more love. We've been struggling for a long time to get some recognition from the Academy. I don't know why, but it's just crazy that you don't want to recognize the people who are putting their lives on the line for your glory. So, Miss Cheryl Lewis, please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the stunt industry, and we'll keep it there before we go into the challenges. But we would like to know a little bit more about you.
Hello, thank you for having me. When I was a kid, I was a gymnast. And then when I retired from gymnastics, I started dancing. So I became that dancer that tumbles. And I've always done sports all through elementary, junior high, high school. My parents could not wait for me to get my driver's license because I was on the gymnastics team, the softball team, the swim team, everything, always running around doing things. So when I started dancing and doing theater, that Dancer That Can Tumble, an audition came up for a live action stunt show. I auditioned, I made it, and that's where my stunt career kind of started. And I met other stunt performers in this show. And being there, someone gave my picture and resume to a TV show that was shooting nearby. They needed a Black female that could do 5 back handsprings in a row. Someone dropped my picture and resume off for that, and I ended up getting that. That was my first SAG stunt job, and then I kept going from there. So for me, everything that I did when I was little just builds on top of each other and helps me now as a stunt performer that's doing gymnastics, that's being an athlete, playing softball, volleyball, swimming, climbing on rocks for fun, keeping up with that kind of aspects of your athleticism. And then when I started martial arts, I was already a dancer. So that translated. My mindset was built for choreography. I can remember choreography because I did stage shows. So when it came to training in martial arts and doing forms, it was a natural fit and progression for me. So everything that, I did in the past helped me with the present and future and my journey as a stunt performer, for the, being a gymnast and a dancer and a performer, that discipline, the training, the mindset, all helped me as a stunt performer, and learning how to take, appreciating the yes and learning how to take the no's.
All right, Mr. Hanshi Naquan Murphy.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. Um, Mine kind of how I got started in this. Well, my background, martial arts was a start for me at the age of 11, and has continued on till today. And I was that guy who would watch a movie or something, and people that would watch movies with me hated me because I was like, "Oh, that don't work. That don't work." I was that guy. I'm going to admit it. Still am a little bit, but so then, from went into the military, and that was my introduction to firearms, really, and made gave me a healthy respect for them. From there, I went into law enforcement, in New York State Department of Corrections, and within my career, I became what was known as a WTO, Weapons Training Officer. By the time my career was over with, if you will, I was in charge of the southern tier of the state of New York as the master instructor. But again, I was that guy watching movies and television shows, and I'm like, that just don't look right. That look at that. That cops don't do that. They don't do that. You don't do that. So I was that guy there. So how I got into the industry was through a challenge. One of my a couple of my staff, they were like, well, listen, you got so much you don't like, why don't you just do something about it? Why don't you get in there and teach people, do it yourself? And I said, you know what, it's not a bad idea. I had no clue on how to do it, I'm gonna be honest, but faith, luck, and perseverance started pushing me in the right direction. And I was working at a firing range as an instructor, and they were filming a segment of a movie there, Summertime, Max Weisberg production, and they needed an armorer. Well, having armor credentials, I am okay. And what I mean by armor credentials, I'm actually factory trained by Glock, Smith and Wesson, Remington, and Colt as an armorer, which, for lack of a better term, some people relate to as gunsmith. But I can maintain and repair all those weapons. So I'm like, okay. And that was my break into it. And from there, just in conversation and people dropping my name here and there, the next person that gave me a nice big bump was a friend of Urban Action, and you, Demetrius, was Time Mock, the Last Dragon. He was starting a project, and he needed some help. And I'm like, okay. And we just went from there. And it's been going pretty good. A lot of word of mouth, a lot of people just dropping my name. And Urban Action has been a very big help because it put a face to me and to others in the industry. And it just started forming the bonds that way. And, so I've been doing like even rap videos where they want firearms in a rap video. Like, okay. So, even last year I did that. Imam Strumpet, the NBA star from the Knicks and the Nets, he embarked in a rap career. And his video, Hello, I was, I supplied the weapons for that. So it's been great. And a lot of things that's been coming behind that, locking into Rollo Robinson Productions, and other production companies have been calling me. So it's been good. It's been good. I've been enjoying myself.
Mr. Brown.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Brown, or Manny Brown. Basically, my background is very similar to Cheryl's in a certain regard. I started tumbling when I was a young kid before I started doing anything else. I don't know why, I was just naturally attracted to it. Used to watch it on TV. I think I was kind of a natural acrobat. So I just did that. went crazy with it, taught myself how to do more and more difficult tumbling skills. And then when I was 10, I went to a martial arts class with my cousin because he was already training. And I took it, fell in love with it entirely, and continued doing it pretty much throughout my life. And then when I was a teenager, I started competing nationally, internationally. I did pretty well. And then in addition to that, I had done theater on and off throughout my youth while I was tumbling and doing martial arts. But then when I got to college, I decided to make it my major. And so I did that. And while I was in college, I also had to dance, like Cheryl said. So I did that. And once I graduated, I moved to New York and just hit the ground running with whatever jobs I could. And it's funny because one of the first jobs I did in New York was I found an audition for a martial arts play. And the thing is, they weren't actually even looking for men. They were looking for women. But I was like, I'm going to go and show them what I can do and hopefully get the job. And I went and I impressed them, and they put me in the show. And it's funny because I recently was in a movie called Made in Chinatown. And one of the producers, one of the reasons I got cast in that movie is because one of the producers of that movie was the producer of that first martial arts play that I did when I moved to New York. And when I was a teenager, around the time that I started competing, that was when Jackie Chan finally made his big breakthrough in the United States with Rumble in the Bronx. And that, honestly, that was what got me wanting to do fight choreography. It was watching the way he crafted it, how complex it was, how just clever his choreography was. And that inspired me to want to be a fight choreographer. And so while I was in that play, I made it clear to everybody in it that I also wanted to choreograph fights and things like that. And it's something that I just continue to do simply because I love it and I can't not do it. In fact, I feel like I haven't done it in a while and it's driving me a little crazy. But yeah, that's pretty much how my life in martial arts and stunts and all that stuff got started. I think it's the best way to say it.
Beautiful, beautiful. He being humble, he ain't telling everything, but I'm gonna get it out of him in a second. This is what I would like to really focus on. As people of color, and right now we're talking about us as Black people, being Black behind the action has a lot to it. Number one is because obviously the opportunities are not as prevalent as other people, right? Or non-Black people, whatever. Let me just be honest. White folks. Okay, not as prevalent as white folks. All right. So, and there has been a lot of shenanigans, I should say, in the industry before, such as painting down and wigging and all that stuff. So let's talk about some of the challenges. And I'm going to start with you, Cheryl, because you've really, really busted this thing wide open. Some of the challenges you had as, first of all, a Black person. Second of all, as a Black woman in this industry called stunt performing. It's a huge hurdle to jump over and to keep, it's like an uphill hurdle. You know, imagine running hurdles uphill. And I feel that's what you've done, but you've done it as if you ran downhill. And speak to that and give us some examples, because you've doubled so many great names, you've done so many great stunts, but speak to the effect of the challenge, number one, and number two, what you did to overcome that challenge.
I think my biggest challenge has always been the assumption, especially being female and then being a Black woman. I had trained and have been an athlete all my life, ever since, I was a kid and still going strong. And the things that I was good at and excelled at and trained in, people didn't naturally assume that on me. So it was that, no, I'm a gymnast. I can do back handsprings. I can do, back tucks. I've been trained for this. I can go on the beam. I can vault. I can do all this stuff now it's better. But when I started as a kid, there wasn't that representation of Black female, especially female gymnasts. And so that was one of the biggest things, of like letting people know that I have this skill set, that I can swim. I was on the swim team when I was in elementary school. And because I did gymnastics, someone from the swim team's like, oh, and it was so funny. And they didn't, I was already there swimming, and they didn't necessarily think of color. But someone, because it was my local pool and they knew me, even though I was the only one, I was the only Black person. And so it was a lot of me training them as well and getting used to this idea. But someone's like, oh, we need an extra person, can you just dive for us in this particular thing? Because I knew how to flip. So, and then someone instructed me how to, just do that extra rotation to make it into a proper dive. But it was also interesting as a kid, my local pool was used to me, my swim team was used to me. And as the reaction you got when we had away meets, that as a young kid, that I'm like, oh, and the little, glances and comments. And it was interesting because some of these were the same comments that the white parents first were saying when I became on the swim team. And now they're correcting other people when we're at away meets for saying the same thing that they used to say. And it's only because they were exposed to it and were used to it. Like, oh no, she can swim. Of course she can swim. But I'm just like, oh, no. You were saying the same thing they were saying when I first got there. But so it's that kind of attitude. And I think that film and TV can play a big part of it, because it's all about exposure of people seeing it. I never saw it, or just rarely saw it when I was a kid, someone Black doing gymnastics or swimming or doing all this. And that is kind of that struggle that you still encounter with other people who you might see on set, and you have to prove yourself, and kind of like, no, I do this, I do that. I'm a sword fighter. I know how to do sword play. I know how to do rapier and rapier dagger. And those kind of weapons, and also martial arts weapons. I lived in Japan for over a year as an aerialist. People still get baffled by a Black woman, an aerialist. They didn't see that before. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I lived in Japan, not as a singer or performer, because sometimes those were the natural things that people would assume when someone of color lives in Japan. I'm like, no, I was a circus aerialist, and I did silks and trapeze and things like that. And when I was in Japan, I'm going to train. So I trained in kendo and wushu when I was in Japan. So when I get back to the States, saying that, oh yeah, I know kendo, I trained in it in Japan for over a year. I wushu, I have my weapons. And so it's those assumptions that sometimes are the biggest thing. And I get on set, especially with weapons or swords, and people they mansplain things with that assumption that I don't know what a sword is without asking or seeing. They just assume. And I'm like, well, what is your background like in swords? I know what mine is. Why do you assume that I don't have it, and I should assume that you do? So it's being able to do that with other people that you need to work with in a diplomatic manner. Sometimes I am not as diplomatic as I should be, but you learn, or sometimes you just have to say, you have to you know, cut to the chase with some people and just let them know, like, no, I put in the time and work. I know my shit. And so those are the things that, for me, are the biggest struggles, are these assumptions of my talent and ability, instead of, you know, having that conversation first. Is the assumption that I don't have X, Y, and Z, when I do. And yeah, so for film and TV, sometimes that can be hard. That can be hard when submitting for something, to let them know that this is what I'm capable on. Because even if they submit for something they say they need a female martial artist, and you see the people that other people are recommending, it is always Asian females. That is just like they say martial arts, it's always that category first. Even if you look at things like, oh, we need a bunch of ninjas for this scene, and say Deadpool or one of the other shows, it's always going to be like the guys as the ninjas, like, but like they're covered, they're hoods. It could be male or female. And then maybe once in a while they'll have like, even if it's just a big group, they'll have a black guy in there. But it's just like, well, you can have females in there. You can have a black female in there. They're ninjas. You can't tell their gender, but it's that assumption that people want to put you in that category, or not think that you belong in this other category. Like, I can be a ninja. It's okay. So those are some of the challenges. And I think definitely film and TV needs more representation, because that's what people see. That's what people see around the world, especially television shows. They're more accessible for people around the world. And when you're presenting this narrative or a particular storyline, and then someone from another country, that's what they see. I mean, look at Friends. Oh my gosh, they're supposed to take place in New York, and not a single like Hispanic or black person, or it's just, oh my God, for how many years? And that was shown around the world as a representation of New York. And that to me is still crazy. It just boggles the mind that it wasn't even like, even Gunther could have been, you know, a black person behind that barista counter. Like, I that still just blows my mind. I don't understand. But that is what still happens, and that we're constantly faced with. And so for me, my personal, like, again, that's me. It's all about getting in there and letting them know what we're capable of, without these assumptions and automatic thoughts of what your talent is.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brown.
I'm sorry, me?
Yes, sir. Mr.
Oh, I'm
Brown.
sorry. I have to agree with that whole thing of the assumption that people they kind of underestimate your knowledge of something. Because I've had instances where we're trying to work out the logistics of something, and I'm like, and it's something martial arts related, and as a martial artist, I'm like, that physically is not going to work. And they go, oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I'm like, okay, well, go ahead and try it. And then we try it, and it doesn't work. And I'm like, that's kind of what I said. I feel like sometimes people treat me like I don't know. I'm like, why is it when I actually know what I'm talking about, people treat me like I don't know what I'm talking about? So yeah, things like that, or when they know that they don't know how to do something that they're asking me to do, and I tell them this is physically kind of awkward the way it's set up. You know, the way you're asking me to do what you're asking me to do, it's physically not going to work, either because of the surface or because of this or that and the other thing. And then they're like, no, they get in there, they try, and they go, oh yeah, this is really awkward. I'm like, yeah, that's one of the big challenges. And speaking of which, I look on IMDb a lot, and I look up lots of movies on there, and I usually look at the casts, especially for like bigger movies. And a lot of times when you look at the main cast members, there might be a black person in the film, and I'm thinking of the fact that if it's an action film, then that means, and if that actor needs a stunt double, then that means there's an opportunity for one person of color as a stunt person to work on this film. And I'm like, if there were more people of color, there would be more opportunities for people of color to work in these films. So I think that's one of the main challenges of just getting as many seats in the film, or as many roles in the film, as people of other races, because that would provide more opportunities for people. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And also, when you are asked as an action performer to work with people who, because sometimes they let the actor who is not a trained martial artist or stunt performer or athlete, they ask you to fight them on camera, or do something stunt related with them. And if they don't know how to do it, then it takes more time. Sometimes you're having to teach them how to do things. Because I've worked with people. Sometimes I have to fight on screen people who don't know how to fight, and then they're like, "This fight isn't working because you're supposed to lose, and you look like you'd be beating this person up." I'm like, "Well, you know what I mean." That's one of the challenges that I've had to work with a lot. And when they don't have the background, and they don't catch on to choreography quick, it can become frustrating for them. It can become frustrating for you. It can be frustrating for everybody, and it just takes more time. So. I think those are the main obstacles that at least I can think of off the top of my head right now.
I'm just going to parlay on that before I get to Hanshi. They want you to work a miracle.
Yeah.
And they don't want to put the time and effort that it takes for the craft. See, the thing is, I think there's an imbalance of understanding. There's two crafts, right? Actually, three crafts at hand, right? You have the craft of acting, you have the craft of filmmaking, and then you have the craft of stunt performing or creating the action. And I feel like when it comes to the action, everyone wants a miracle and don't want to put the time and the effort to make it look right, or to allow the process to unfold properly so that it can look right. Like you said, time with the actor. How come you didn't allot time to train the actor so the actor would look like they know what they're doing? I'm gonna put this out here. Cobra Kai. Okay, Cobra Kai, right? Dude, great acting. Love my boy Daniel LaRusso, and of course Johnny's great. But they're veterans. They've been doing this, so they look okay. Everybody else look crazy. Because you didn't respect the artistry of martial arts in this craft of filmmaking and acting. You only respected the acting artistry. So your people look cray-cray doing what they doing. It's just night and day. Like he said, the villains, which are the real martial artists that are doing what they do and somehow getting beat by these people, which don't look like they spent a day learning how to throw a punch or a kick or anything. And I think that's sad because this is an iconic, IP that we all grew up with. Like, for instance, little Jaden Smith, he spent the time. They brought in Jackie Chan to train him. He spent the time to train and to learn to make his stuff look as believable as possible. But yet, when you get on some of these sets, they want you to turn water into wine, and then they wondering why it's not working. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I get to do my 2. All right, Anchi, talk to us, brother. I would think that you got a gun in your hand. Folks ain't bothering you.
Well, let me tell you, brother, piggybacking on what everybody else said, but one of the things that I find is that we get discounted because we're not supposed to know these things. The funniest part and most disheartening is that people who are in my category as armorer, how many of them looks like us? I have, very rarely. And usually they are an apprentice. And it's across the board. Even, unfortunately, some of our own people, because they're so used to, society has already kind of tuned them in that, okay, a person with this kind of knowledge has to look like this or that. So when I walk into a room, they're going to give me a side eye sometimes, like, well, who are you? Oh, I'm the guy you messaged. Niquan. Oh, really? And it gets to the point where it's like, it's like I'm always having to, if you will, like do a little bit extra in an interview just to let them know that, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. Then they get the thing of where they look at you and they say, okay, he's going to be teaching everybody how to hold the gun to the side like this in the street, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that. No. I want that sharp, crisp person. I want to spend time with them, I want to train with them. I want to teach them things like, if they're wearing a holster, how to properly wear a holster. Because I look at that and that drives me crazy. Things, the small things. I give them the small things and they start realizing like, oh, he really does know what he's talking about. Even as a firearms instructor, I had gotten into the habit of when I'm about to start a new class, and class would be pretty diverse. But of course, for me to step in front of a class and, and they kind of look at me like, does he know what he's talking about? So what I started doing actually was before class started, I'll sit amongst the students and start a conversation. Yo, do you think this guy know what he's talking about? I mean, I heard he's a black guy. What does he know? And people start opening up and start saying small things. Well, I don't know. That I heard he was good, but da 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 da. And then when the class starts, then I'll pop up and okay, let's start the class, and you should see the faces. But I do that sort of like, what the sister said. You get those comments when you first walk in the door. Michelle said, and they look at, well, do you really know how to? And then they realize, okay, all right. So what I want to do is build that kind of thing where when people hear my name or people see me and go, oh no, that's the guy you want. That guy right there. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to hear, because too many times, you get that extra piece of question trying to see if you really know what you're talking about. Give an example. Doing shooting a film in Harlem 2 years ago on 12th Avenue and like 134th Street. So permits, everything is all ready to go. It's a black production. The NYPD TV film unit is supposed to be on set. They get there late. So we had already started because our time was at 10 o'clock. So a fight scene was already going on, and I had a gravity knife that was used in the scene. So they pull up and they're ready already, kind of on agitated. Well, you're not supposed to. Well, you were supposed to be here at 10 o'clock. Producer's talking to them. Okay. So now he's like, well, okay, and the permit says you're going to have weapons out. Where's your weapons guy? So I walk over, introduce myself. And right away it's like, I'm somebody who's just off the street, not a professional. And he says, well, you can't have the weapons just out and about when you're bringing them out on set. You got to have them in some kind of bag or case. I have all that. Okay, well, we're going to have to inspect them. No problem. Where you have them stored, I said, see that truck across the street with the sign on it that says X-Ring Master? They're secured in Pelican cases in that truck. Oh, okay. Well, well, we'll be going over there and inspect and see what you got. I said, no problem. Oh, let me see that knife. Here you go. He looks at the knife. I said, he's trying to close it. He didn't even know how to close the thing. It was just a simple sit up, just like a real knife. So I just took it from him and closed it. Said, hey, here you go. And so by the time they came to do the inspection, I always carry on set, which, anybody I'm sure should, but I have a binder with all my certifications and credentials in, just in case things like this happen. So the cop asked me, okay, well, he's looking at the sign and he says, well, who do you work for? Who's this company? I looked at him. I said, I work for me. This is my company. Oh, okay. Well, well, what kind of credentials do you have? I'm like, no problem. I brought out my binder. I just showed him just the first 2 pages. He, oh, okay. I said, I got like 10 pages of stuff in there. I said, no. You asked, you got to see them all. And he sees them all, state of New York, this, that, and the other, municipal police training council, all this stuff. And he's just standing there looking at me like, I'm like, you asked. I want to make sure you fully understand. Okay, can I see what? No problem. And I start popping Pelican cases and explaining to him what we had, so forth, so on, so on, so on. And he's like, oh, okay. The guy wanted to get away from me because I was just hitting him upside the head with so much. He just wanted to get away. He just wanted to finish and go back to his car, which is kind of what he did. And then he obviously told his partner what he experienced. And the funny part about it was, all of a sudden, we got carte blanche. Whatever we wanted, we got. It was like, all of a sudden, the whole thing changed. But why did I have to go there? That's my thing. Why do I have to go there? Because again, unfortunately, even with some of our own people, we're discounted because sometimes they're just not sure that we even know what we know. But like a lot of you guys, like all of you, when I get on a production, my biggest thing is I want to do training. I want to train those actors so they look proper. And we know you get a couple of weeks or a couple of days, whatever, they're not going to be perfect. But at the same time, at least they're not going to look so crazy out of the box that, you can kind of reel them in between takes and kind of get them going again, So that's important to me to do the training, because I want them to look real, look professional. And again, I can explain to them different aspects of why. So like when it comes to like a special weapons team or the SWAT team, something like that, I have 20 years of that experience. And on my team, I was the weapons team leader. So of course, I'm giving them realistic scenarios. I'm giving them, proper handling. So even their movements are precise and they look like, oh man, where did these guys come from? That's what I want to hear. If I don't hear nothing else, how it looks on film and how impressed people are, when they see them move, I love that. And I focus on that. But it's a challenge because, people that look like us aren't supposed to have that kind of knowledge, whether it be fight choreography or otherwise. We're not supposed to have that kind of knowledge, So that's one of the challenges for me.
Yes, sir. So what would you guys like to see change when it comes to the industry? Obviously, we need more representation, right? But what, as someone that's in the mix, right? What would you like to see change to make your job easier so that you can help them do what they want you to do? Just, obviously, Cheryl, you mentioned, that assumption factor, right? Everyone mentioned that assumption factor. But what would you like to see change, Cheryl, that would make your job easier so you can do what you do best for you and for your double?
There's a few things. One is, and I say this, talk to the person, talk with the person you're talking about. And there's so many, I call them the defaults. Sorry, that's the white male stunt coordinator. And they will get a show. It could be a show that takes place in South Central. It can be a show that takes place in Boston, and it could have a cast that has 80% people of color, or it can have a cast, 100% Caucasian, but there might be some LGBTQ in there or different aspects and diversity. But these white male coordinators, especially if there's of a certain age and certain generation, have a certain mindset. And then when they have a question, they'll ask that question to somebody else that's like them. So they'll ask another straight white male about this non-binary actor on their set, or the wig situation for an African American female. And my thing is like, just speak with the person you're talking about. Have that communication. I would like them to have the same kind of class and training that they're starting to do now for, sexual harassment. Because they're like, oh, I didn't know that was sexual. I was just, or you're just being too sensitive. But now they have to have these classes saying, no, this is not proper. This is not right. But they need that same kind of class when regard to race, diversity, and gender. And I would like that to happen, those conversations and knowledge to be opened up. And there's a lot of training and learning that they need to have, that they don't or don't think they need, but they actually do. And so that's one thing I would like to see happening. It's because it's always interesting to me. And again, I'm another person that will look at the IMDb page and the stunts and go take a look. There's a movie called it's a horror movie. I think it's called Black Hair or Scary Hair.
Bad Hair.
And Bad Hair, yeah. Not the documentary, but it was like the horror movie spoof.
Yeah.
And it's all females. And so all the doubles, it's all Black females. All the doubles are Black females. And if you look at the stunt page, there's a picture of this white blonde lady, and she's the stunt coordinator. And just that optic alone, not saying that she's not qualified, but I'm just like, really, like any one of those doubles, there's veterans in there, could have been the stunt coordinator for this film. But I don't even understand how or why and that kind of thing, because certain things, I'm not saying that you can't because of your race, but there's certain things that you don't have experience or knowledge or even like education regarding, that perhaps somebody else is more qualified because they have experience, education, and knowledge, regarding a step show at a, historically Black college or Black hair. So those kind of things, have your departments be trained in all aspects. There's no reason why the person who's doing hair if she's Caucasian, that's fine. But if she hasn't had any class or training with textured hair, they need to go and get that training. And there's a lot of actors who've been speaking on this, not just me as a stunt performer, but the actors themselves who have been speaking on this issue, especially with the hair department. This one actor, he said he went in and the person sprayed his hair with water and did a pat pat. And he was just like, yeah. So there's, and he's just like, yeah, because they don't know what to do. They don't have the training and they don't bother to get the training, or the department head doesn't bother to make sure, oh, okay, you have training, you went to cosmetology school, but, do you have training with texture hair? Do you know the difference between 1B, 4C, and a 2A? Like, do you have this knowledge as well? And that is another thing that I would like to see change, because that African American woman, that Black woman, that Latina woman who's doing the hair has to have her credentials and be able to do this, that, and the other. But this Caucasian woman does not. And then they're on the show. Yeah, that's one. Okay. All right. I'm done.
I agree. The few times I've been on set, I had my own hair done. You ain't touching my hair, baby. It's not happening. You gonna like what I got? Listen, it's gonna be like the Men's Warehouse. You gonna like the way I look. I guarantee it. Mr. Brown.
Something that I would like to see change, and this is also, I guess, applies to theater, which I work in a lot also, is just respect for the time that it takes to put these things together. Because, for example, like I said, I've worked in theater a lot, and I work not just as a fight choreographer, but also as a performer. If it's a musical or if there's dancing in it, they get tons of time. Sometimes they get multiple hours a day and many days out of the week. Whereas for the fight direction, you might get an hour here, you might get an hour over there, you might get a couple hours during the week. Whereas with the dance, they get multiple hours a day. And same thing with film and TV. And it's sometimes when you have to train an actor who's not a martial artist or a fighter or any of those sorts of things, you have to first get them to remember the choreography, however long that takes. And then after you get them to remember the choreography, you have to actually spend time getting the technique into them so that they look like they know what they're doing. So I guess it's more just respect for because I feel, obviously fight choreography is dance, and while dance choreography does have its dangers, it's obviously not as dangerous as two people fighting with swords. So I think if there was just a little bit more respect for the process and the work that goes into creating action, I think that's the main thing I would like to see change. I mean, depending on the project, sometimes they do get lots of time. Sometimes they get to do previs and they get to do this and that. But sometimes you get to sit and they're like, okay, make a fight. You know what I mean? So yeah, just more time and respect for the process.
Yes, sir. She.
I gotta echo what both of these people said, because I've experienced that as well. And one of the things that I would like to see is for productions to be a little more independent in their process. And what I mean by that is people will say to me, now we're doing a project that's present day, but they're trying to do things as if it was back in the 80s. And even firearms handling has changed over the years. And they're like, because that looked good in this movie, well, that's not going to fit in this one. My favorite line is, when I go somewhere, it has to make sense. The other part about, which has Mr. Brown hit on right away, was that whole piece about training. Now, as a martial artist, we all know, that fine line in getting someone to move and look like they know what they're doing and still be safe at the same time. Now, at the other point, now you got a mechanical piece in their hand. Let's face it, firearm is mechanical. We have the static ones that are just rubber or resin that doesn't do anything, just kind of looks a particular way. But then you have the ones where you got to change magazines, you got to pull bolts back, you got to, aim and hold it a certain way. I had a producer say to me about, well, how come you haven't spent time with the thugs in the production, but with everybody else you spend more time with? I said, okay, let's look at that. If a person is military or law enforcement, they've had extensive training and continued extensive training in how to handle a firearm, and they progress in a certain way. Some cops who are like an emergency response, they're going to be at a higher level of the way they handle. The average cop is not, but he's still going to be good. A street guy, he's not going to he's a criminal. He's not going to no school. He's not going nowhere else, So however he holds it, it's going to be for him, just the way they do it. And it looks more natural. It looks more realistic. And those are the small things that they don't want to look at sometimes, because then they start comparing their production to, like, let's say a John Wick. He's a criminal. He's a criminal. I go, yeah, but okay. Look at the type of criminal he is, So let's put things in the right perspective from what you're doing and the kind of criminal this is. This is a regular street thug. This is not some high, in request, guy who's like the master killer, for the organization. Totally two different things. So, they got to look better at the perspective of what they're doing. And again, I'm going to emphasize again that training, because I've had the experience where, and of course we know that depends on sometimes the budget of the production, where I've come in and it's like, okay, this guy is going to be doing XYZ. I need you to train him. Okay, well, you're giving him the most complicated thing to do. All right. So I try to make it happen as best I can, and I do. Most of the time I get it done. But it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. The more things you got to work with, whether it be hand-eye coordination, movement. So now we got feet movement, we have hand movements, and then we have the head movements. All this got to come in together, come in the line to make that person look like they know what they're doing and they don't fall on their face. One of the other things that is kind of frustrating, I'd like to see change. Now, if I'm on the set with Cheryl and Manny, and they're both stunt coordinators, or they're doing their thing with stunt. Now, do I know stunt choreographers? Yeah, I do, but that's not what I focus on, because I like to focus on what I do. If one of them said to me, "Take a look at this. I just need a second line. Take a look at this. What do you think?" No problem. No problem. Because people watch movies and TV and stuff, everybody's a gun expert. So I'll have the stunt guys that I'm working with firearms, and then turn my back, and then here's somebody else coming in. No. What you should do is this. And I've actually had to scream on the guy one time. It's kind of out of character for me. Demetrius, you know me, I'm kind of cool with stuff. But I had to just blurt out, "Stay in your effing lane." And everything stopped and everybody cracked up, because they knew it. Whoa, you must really pissed him off, because he's not like that. But, I had to do it to reel it back in, because, those things can be frustrating, when you're trying to get something accomplished. So I guess that's about it for me.
All right. We don't have much time, but what I would like to do is obviously preparation is key. We've all talked about training. And when it comes to representation, the excuse is, oh, we couldn't find nobody, right? So they basically saying we don't exist. There's not enough of us for them to find when they really not looking, but that's fine. Anyway, to shut that down, give us some examples of what you're doing to prepare the next generation, or what you know is being done, so that we can have more people of color that are interested in getting into the industry called stunt performance or fight choreography or second unit director or whatever. What can be done? Do you know any mentorship programs? Are you guys mentoring people? Are you guys training people? Give us some examples where people can actually learn how to be a part of the industry.
Actually, I'm sorry. Is it all right if I have to kind of excuse myself? I'm sorry. I have some place that I have to be in.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, man.
I'm sorry, but thank you.
Appreciate you,
Thanks for
sir.
having me. This is great. Thanks.
All right. See you next time, my brother.
All right. Peace. Take care. Thank you.
All right, Miss Cheryl.
Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and do what you do and what you love to do. Whether that's gymnastics or ice skating or being an aerialist, do your skill and train and make sure that you are trained. So again, as we say, when someone pulls up on you and starts to question you about what you know, it's just like, oh no, this is where I trained. This is the classes I studied Taekwondo under this instructor. But also, I guess in this age is you have to film yourself, even your progress, and put it out there, and then start finding your groups. There's a Black Women Martial Arts, Instagram page, which I love. There's Black Women pole dancing page, which I love. There's so many skill sets that we have that we just need to be supportive and encouraging of one another, of what we do, whether, there's the Blacks in Ballet page, another one, which I love. And I show people it, and for some reason they get shocked and awed. They're awed the beauty, and they're shocked to like, oh, look at all these graceful, fierce ballerinas on point who are Black, and there's so many people that had no idea that all these skill sets exist. And it's like, well, everything exists. Every skill set that there is, there's people that do it. And and there's people that do it that are white, and there's people that do it that are not white. So let's get that out of the way, that it doesn't exist. It's going to be what your gaze is, what your net is, where you're willing to open your arms and reach out to, as far as you being aware and knowledgeable about it. So for me, it's being encouraging and supportive, even if it's just seeing somebody else's post and saying, that was a great back handspring. Because I know, to me, when I was a gymnast as a kid, and I never saw anybody that looked like me doing that, but I knew that there was other people that looked like me doing it. I just wasn't exposed to it because it wasn't on TV or film, but I knew I wasn't the only one. And I'm in Maryland, but I'm sure there's somebody in Texas that looks like me and was doing gymnastics as well. But we just wasn't exposed to it in the film and media kind of format. So if there's somebody who's doing their back handspring and you just say, oh, that's great, keep going. I know if I got that as a kid, how much that would mean to me. So it's the little things, and it sounds simple enough, but that kid in Ohio who might not have that community around them, that little word of encouragement, can mean a lot, can make them go forward. just like somebody watching Jackie Chan, that inspiration of what they can do, be encouraging, supportive, of inspiring to other people. You're not in competition with anybody but yourself. And the actor Titus from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and he was in an interview, and he's a musical theater performer. And someone asked him about, accepting rejection, and he was just like, yeah, about it. And I was like, how do you do that? And he's like, what am I gonna do? Like, they don't want to hire me. I'm gonna get them to hire me, and I'm gonna be mad about somebody not hiring me. If they don't want to hire me, they're not gonna hire me, and I'm gonna move on and keep going and do what I do, because the next person will hire me. And sometimes you just have to have that attitude. And what my father, a strong, intelligent, well-educated Black man, instilled in me. He's like, you have to worry about the people that like you. Don't worry about the people who don't. Meaning sometimes we go after the people who rejected you or not, like, pay attention to me. Oh no, well, I can do that. And instead of the people who are supporting you, you have to bond those relationships too. Don't let that relationship with that person who's on your side go down the drain to try to get the attention of somebody who keeps saying no to you. So, like, worry about that person who's on your side, not the person who's not smart enough to know your worth.
Amen. Hanshi, we know you teach classes, so tell us about all the classes, how people can learn from you even now, and how they can take part in the firearm training and get their certifications.
Yes. I'm always open to people getting the training, and I want to make sure that when I give it to them, I give them what they actually need and a little more. I always believe in giving more. Now, it's really the thing is that mentorship. I've even tried my best to even get more people of color to become instructors and become armorers. I've sent a few people to schools. I've introduced them to schools, and they've got their certifications, and I use them. They work with me sometime. So just to give them, and I want to give them the experience. And that's the thing is, don't be afraid. We can't be afraid to pull somebody up. That's our job. Okay. We're supposed to do that. And too many, I find that some of us are like, oh, I got this. I can't let nobody else in on this. No, because your blessings are going to come. Your blessings are always going to come as long as you're not afraid to put it out there. X-Ring Master, I have a website, xringmaster.com. So anybody can contact me that way and look and see some of the things that I've done. I am on IMDb. And I kind of, in the industry, I've branched out. I never wanted to do anything but what I'm doing. I'm going to be honest. That's what I focused on, and that's what I wanted to do. But I found myself being pushed in front of the camera a few times. So, I have been in front of the camera a few times as an actor, and, I've gotten into producing, one of the producers with Rollo Robinson Productions and a few other things. And you know what? It's been fun. And why I allowed myself to be pushed out there, because that's another thing. I had to make sure that, like some people have gone to school for filmmaking and so forth, and they're really into it. I wasn't that guy. But I'm not afraid to learn from everybody. I sit back. I'm that guy that sits there and watches everything that goes on and then start to take it and use it to help me benefit myself and others. But, I try to tell everybody, don't be afraid to just Take that leap of faith. Go ahead. Go out there. Because when I got in the industry, like I said, I really had no idea how to do it. But 15 years later, I'm loving it. Now, I may have had something that some didn't have or don't have in the industry is I have fallbacks. That so I don't have to worry about it. Just as Ms. Lewis said about, well, somebody didn't hire you. Okay, no problem. And that's my attitude. Why? One, I collect a pension. I've been collecting a pension for 14 years. Okay, that's never going to stop. So I'm always going to eat. I'm always going to be able to go on a vacation once in a while and buy gifts to my family. I'm okay. And I actually had to tell that to a director one time because he was one of these is like, if you don't do it like this, I'm going to make sure. I said, stop right there. Stop right there. Don't do that. And I had to kind of explain the facts of life to him. And then the AD came to him later and said, are you out your mind? You don't talk to that man like that. And again, it's because I'm laid back. But again, as we're saying, anybody who wants knowledge, they should go after it. I'm an open book. You come to me, I'm going to give you what you need. I don't have a problem with that. I do all during the pandemic, when my classroom trainings had to shut down. Virtual is good, but I'm more of I got to be in your space kind of a guy. So with a huge backyard, small classes, I was able to continue on and train people. And they actually had the hands-on training, and I can help them, direct them into what they need to do and put them through the paces. And just through social media and then some of them just calling me, I've noticed that a lot of them are using those things and they are thriving. And I love it. I love it. So, and like Demetrius mentioned, I have no problem in handing a person that certificate that they earned. They work for it. I'm gonna give them a certificate. A lot of times, even just the small seminars, like at Urban Action, a lot of the people who are participating in my workshop, they're surprised that they get a certificate. No, you put the work in. You were here. You got this. All right. And if it helps them in their career, all the better. All the better. Like I said, I'm a giver, and but just make sure that what I give you, you use it wisely, use it correctly. And we're good. We're good. But anybody can, like I said, you can go to my website and they got all my contacts are there and they can reach out and they can take a look at some of the things on there. Like I said, also on IMDb. And I want to pull more people that look like us into doing the kind of things that we're doing, because I've seen others and it was kind of like, really? It's like that person, you go to the dance and, when Marvin Gaye comes on, everybody's moving a certain way. And then you got that one person or that one couple that's just like way out of step, and you're looking like, okay, you're special. So, but I want everybody in step doing that no matter what. I'm with you.
All right. So what I would like you guys to do, first, thank all of you guys for being with me today. Miss Sherilyn Action Lewis, Hanshi Naquan Murphy, Emmanuel Manny Brown. Sorry, he had to go a little early. We went a little over today. But do me a favor, put your information in the comments. People might want to follow you. Put your social media or your website in the comments. So when people go back to this video, which will continue to circulate on social media, they will be able to find you guys and actually, friend you guys and follow you and perhaps get some pertinent information from you. But I appreciate you guys being a part of the action. Thank you for your insight, which is very valuable as veterans in the field. And I can't wait to see you guys again in person. We're not going back live for Urban Action per se until 2022. because I'm a little older. I need to sit and watch and see how things go. Because I got I usually have 80 volunteers, and that's a lot of people to be responsible for. When it comes to this, and also we're not a social distancing event. We're a networking, family oriented event where it's all about being up close and personal. Also, unfortunately, the theaters in New York have not gone back to 100%, and they still not sure when. They were hoping July 1st, but right now they're saying they're not certain. So, it's a big production doing it live. So we're going to stay virtual again, November 12th through the 20th this year. Definitely visit the Urban Action Expo, which is open 24 hours. Go to the events tab, drop it down to June Jump Off, and you can go to all the virtual experiences we have. And then we're still doing the private chats and personal messages with Janisha Adams Ginyard, one of the Dora Milaje from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Black Panther, and of course, Infinity War and Endgames. Once again, thank you, esteemed guests. Everybody be safe, and we will see you at 3 for the Black Heroes Matter panel. All right. Thanks again, guys. Be safe. God bless.